atWork Australia would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and pay our respect to elders past and present. This podcast is being recorded in the southwest and Western Australia, which is land of the Noongar people. We'd also like to pay our respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands from wherever you may be listening from. Hello and welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations with Shaun. I really enjoyed this episode. It's not every day that you get to speak to someone who truly understands the challenges that you face while trying to find employment. Myself, living with a vision impairment, when it come to trying to find a job for me, I honestly thought there'd be no employer who would want to hire me with my disability. Speaking with Ray today, he's also another man who lives with a vision impairment, and he completely understood and had the same concerns that I did. We had a lot in common. We were able to discuss the different challenges that we've both faced while living with our vision impairments, and I really hope you're going to enjoy and take a lot away from this episode. Thank you so much for taking the time to come along today and have a chat with me about your journey and your experience with atWork Australia. We really appreciate you taking the time.
All right, no worries.
So our audience can get to know you a little bit. Do you mind telling us a bit about yourself? Like, whereabouts do you come from and what are you doing for work?
Yeah, well, my name's Raymond Treverton. I'm a proud Indigenous man. I'm from Dungutty country. And I'm from Dungutty, but living in Bundjalung country at the moment. I work in aged care as an assistant in nursing.
Yeah, nice one. If you don't mind me asking, I know you just spoke about where you're from in your native language. Whereabouts is that? Is that in Queensland, I believe, somewhere?
Dungutty country is in the mid-north coast of New South Wales, the Macfarlane
mid-north.
Valley.
Yeah, okay. And you lived there your whole life?
I was back and forwards. I grew up there and also in the north side of Brisbane as well.
I've never been there, but I heard it's a very nice part of the world.
Yeah, it's a good place to grow up.
Yeah, and I understand that you've been working in aged care for quite some time now. Have you always been passionate about supporting others?
Well, I hadn't worked in it all my career, but I've got a lot of lived experiences with helping care for my mother and my father and grandparents and stuff. So growing up, so it just comes naturally.
Okay, and so what did you do before you were in aged care?
Honestly, I did start in the construction industry, and then I ended up going into retail, like customer service.
And then how did you progress from customer service to aged care? Did you have to go back to study to get your qualifications?
No, well, I believe all of my job roles that I had leading up to my aged care, they all helped me for my role as a support worker, because just having all the experience with customer service. And also I worked in hospitality as well as customer service at the same time. So I was sort of like really good with customers and stuff, and just a people person in general.
So that allowed you to be able to provide that care to those people who need it.
Yeah, and I was fortunate enough. It was actually during COVID, like 2020, the lockdown, how it first started. I was working in hospitality in my local RSL club, which I was really happy doing. I love bartending and just talking to the customers in the community. A lot of my family members and friends would go there as well. But due to the lockdown, I ended up getting a role in the healthcare industry, thank goodness. So it was sort of an essential worker.
Nice one. Then what led you to needing support from atWork Australia to find employment?
Well, in 2021, I was diagnosed with an eye disease. I didn't notice it at first. I didn't realise how serious it was, but I thought I just needed glasses, The optometrist, he picked up on something that I didn't notice, and unfortunately, within 3 months of being diagnosed, I had to hand my licence in and unfortunately step down from work due to not being able to rely on anyone to get me to and from my shifts. So I left work. I stepped down from working, and I had a good 1.5 to 2 year break from work as well in that time.
What was your eye condition that caused your sudden vision loss?
Yeah. I got diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, which is a pretty rare genetic eye disease. It's like meant to be inherited, but it's sort of strange because I'm in the middle of doing genetic testing, and from what I can see, there's no history of it in my family.
Yeah, right. However it come about, you could be the first one within your family group to suffer from this illness.
Yes, correct. And Most of the time with this condition, it's passed through the women and only affects the men, funny enough.
Yeah, okay. And from when you got your diagnosis, how quickly did your vision deteriorate to, I guess, what it is now, or is it continuing to deteriorate?
Yeah, well, I picked up on it when it started really. I had a rapid loss of vision, which is a normal in the case of this eye disease. Yeah, so I'd lost a good 70% at least, mainly my peripherals. I've been told that there's no cure or treatment for the disease, so it is unfortunately just going to get worse and worse.
Look, mate, I'm sorry to hear that you had to experience that. I can actually totally relate to your situation. When I was 19, I was on holidays in Bali and I woke up one morning not quite feeling myself. And by lunchtime, I was 100% blind and just about on my deathbed. I was very fortunate enough to regain about 10% of my eyesight, but to this day, I'm also declared legally blind. So
Yeah.
I understand some of the challenges and frustrations that you probably went through after getting your diagnosis and having to leave work because of your disability.
Yeah, that's right. And I know now that I was going through a grieving process that it's difficult for a lot of people to understand, especially when you're going through it yourself. So there's a lot of phases going through when you're grieving, including like denial and sadness and frustration.
Yeah, I can totally understand that because in the early days, what were you thinking? You sort of in a bit of disbelief that, my vision's going to get better. It's not going to be permanent. Then you start asking yourself questions. What am I going to do for work?
Yeah, that's right. That was my main concern, was being able to continue working at the job I was working. And just because I was very fortunate to be where I was, I felt, I was very supported and stuff at the job I was at, but I was reluctant to return to work because I sort of was doubting myself.
Yeah, of course. You always have a lot of self-doubt when you go through such a significant change in your life. So you said you stepped out of employment for 18 months?
Yes.
What did you do throughout that time? Were you just trying to rebuild your confidence and your ability to return to work?
Yes, first of all, I went through all of my savings that I had saved over the last 6 years. I was saving for a deposit for a home. For a good year, I hadn't received any Centrelink benefits. I wasn't on NDIS, so I did go for a lot of my savings, and I had a Land Cruiser, which I'd saved for a long time and which I had to sell just in order to survive and get by. It was just difficult. That was the hardest thing for me, was adjusting to my financial situation.
And then again, when I suffered my vision loss, I was 19 years old. I had no one else rely on me. I had no responsibilities. But I guess this happened to you. You still got a young family and you're concerned about how you're going to be able to provide for them.
Yeah, that's right. And I was really struggling mentally at the time. Me and my partner, we had a relationship breakdown as well, just due to me going through the grieving processes and not being able to understand and deal with my emotions correctly at the time. And it was just a lot. It's a lot adjusting to losing your vision, especially being a support worker in the NDIS to then becoming a client. I was very reluctant to accept the supports and stuff to begin with. And it was a lot for my family and stuff to take on as well. My close family, it was a lot for them to deal with.
Yeah.
But they were very supportive.
And what do you think the turning point was for you when you decided to accept the support?
Well, there was a lot of things that gave me back a lot of confidence, and also mainly the confidence to leave where I was. I didn't feel safe, or I didn't see a future there for myself in doing what I was doing. When I left work, I had to hand in my rental property as well.
Yep.
That was another thing. I handed in the keys for my rental property as they weren't understanding of my situation. And I now know there's a lot of supports and reports that I could have got given to me for my real estate in order to keep my rental property.
Yep.
So I ended up staying with my mother after I'd left work. I stayed at my mum's place and helped care for her, and she also helped me.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you acquire these disabilities or impairments, all of a sudden, it's quite a traumatic period in your life, and it's really hard to know what supports are available and know where you can go to get help. Did you experience that as well?
Yes, I did. I did have a lot of trouble trying to find the right avenues and supports. And in that time, that 18 months, I slipped through the gaps a lot just due to not knowing what services were available and just being reluctant to reach out.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever did this, but there would have been many times within the first few years of when I lost my vision, I would start Googling what to do when you go blind, but even the almighty Google couldn't give me a response.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm glad like there is some information on my specific eye condition, and there's a lot of support groups online and that too, which
Yeah.
help a lot because it's a pretty rare eye condition, retinitis pigmentosa. I'd never even heard of it, even working in nursing and stuff.
Yeah. And so now tell me about your journey getting back to employment. Tell me about what happened when you first come to atWork Australia. How did we begin supporting you?
Well, I actually reached out to atWork Australia on voluntary basis just to see what options were available for me and what employment would be available for me with my eye condition. And I sort of limited myself even at that time. I had beliefs that I wouldn't be able to work in some places.
Did you ever have concerns that, because I know I certainly did, I used to think to myself, what employer is going to want to hire me with my vision impairment? For many years, it probably stopped me from putting myself out there and applying for jobs. Did you ever experience anything like that?
Yes, definitely. I've been even reluctant to even mention that I've got a disability because, like, firstly, it's an invisible disability. Unless you make people aware, they don't know. So there's been times where I've been reluctant to even mention it, just worrying I wouldn't get the job. Or even with rental properties, I wouldn't even mention anything about Guide Dogs Australia because they thought automatically that I'm getting a guide dog from them, and
Yeah.
this was like 2 years, like a year or two before I even got my guide dog, which I have now. Yeah, so there was a lot of prejudice and stuff towards people with disabilities as well.
Yeah, of course. And just as you mentioned your guide dog now, are you able to talk to us a little bit about that? I'm sure a lot of people who own someone who uses a guide dog might not exactly know how the whole process or how it works. Do you mind talking us through, I guess, your relationship with your guide dog and how he supports you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do. As of about a month and a half ago, I received a guide dog from Guide Dogs Australia, and her name's Ebony, and they actually donated her to me without funding from NDIS. It's in the process now, but they actually reached out to me and approached me about the guide dog. I had questions about it, about how to go about getting a guide dog, as I'm very reluctant to use a cane. I don't, it's sort of embarrassing. I feel embarrassed sometimes, which is ridiculous, but having a guide dog for me just gives me more dignity and like confidence to go out in public with my guide dog, with my sports.
Yeah, I've never used a guide dog myself. My vision's good enough where I don't need one. But could you be out in your community and what type of commands would you give to your dog? Would you say, oh, I want to go home or I need to get to? How would you talk
Yeah.
to her and get where you need to go?
Well, first of all, she's really intelligent. Like, I am just blows my mind how intelligent she is. She knows over 30 different commands. I'm still trying to remember all of them. I've got them all written down. I had to write them all down because there's so many commands that she knows and that she goes by. And just walking in general, like I'll be walking along and I'll say to her, find the travelator. And I don't usually even use travelator in a sentence. I'll just say the escalator or something. But she knows what a travelator is. She knows
Wow.
what a lift is. She knows what a trolley is. She knows what most things are, which is I was really impressed with. And just walking along with her, I just say find left or find right. That's when we're already moving. Like there's terms for it as well. There's all terminology which I'm trying to get my head around as well. But she's just very smart, and she'll stop. I'll say, for example, find the curb, and she'll go up and find the curb, and that's what I do before I cross a road, so I can still make sure it's safe to cross. And
And
thank goodness I still do have a small bit of central vision. It's mainly my peripheral vision that's affected.
so, but how do you feel confident in crossing a road? Will she stop you if there's a car?
Yes, she will. But also, like you got to remember as well, like it's at the end of the day, it's just she is a dog. I've got to take care not just of myself but for her too.
Have you had any close calls with her?
Well, my main concern with her, honestly, is just being out in public and when she's on the harness, that's when she's working. They're pretty strict with how she has to act appropriately. She's
Yeah, yeah, of course.
representing Guide Dogs Australia too. So my main thing is just she gets startled sometimes when we'll come around a corner and there's someone else walking their dog. Just I've noticed I'm working her out, like it's mainly just medium sized fluffy dogs that startle her.
But is she quite a young dog herself, though?
She's 2 years old and
Yeah.
Sometimes she'll bark, but it's just like a one bark, a one-off bark, which I'm figuring out is like it's when she's startled, she's saying hello or who are you sort of thing.
Yeah, okay. And how do you stop your kids from playing with her?
Well, thank goodness. It's mainly my 4-year-old. My 10-year-old, he's really good. Like, he's so supportive. But my 4-year-old, it's taken him a little bit longer to learn some things, but he knows now once she's on a harness. And I've got a very high-vis attachment for it, which says "Do not pat." So once she's on harness, the kids know that they're not supposed to touch her while she's on harness. But once she's off harness, she's just totally different. She's just a silly goose then.
just becomes like a normal family member.
Yes, which was one of my main concerns before getting her. Just like whether it be very strict all the time or if she's allowed to just be a dog. So it's really good.
Yeah. Oh, that's glad to hear it's all working out well for you.
Yeah, it's gone really great. Like I said, I was reluctant to accept any of these supports, including a guide dog. I didn't think to be honest, I felt guilty and didn't think I needed a guide dog, but my vision is getting worse and worse. And as it turns out, like a lot of people with my eye condition are guide dog handlers.
And do you feel much more independent now that you do have Ebony?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. It's given me a new lease on life almost, where I'm out in the community now and raising awareness as well. Like I get stopped a lot often. Like people seem to think that I'm a guide dog trainer. So I'm training her to go to someone that's vision impaired, but I've got to explain to people, no, she's for me. I'm vision impaired. I've only got so much vision, and they're blown away, because they often see me too locally,
Yeah, I can relate to that. I've been out in the community before as well, and people don't realise that I have a vision impairment. And probably when I was younger, people might make comments or, if I trip over a curb or something, you'd hear someone laugh or something like that. Well, that used to bother me when I was younger, but now not so much. But because I don't appear as someone with a vision impairment, no one knows about the challenges I'm trying to overcome.
Yeah, and it's sort of like a shame thing too. Like, you try not to be shame about it, but I'm at the stage where I'm accepted it, and I just think to myself, I'm like, how would you think when you see someone on the street with a vision impairment, like, do you think that's funny or anything? So it's like, I've got to stop being shame about it, I guess. So
there's nothing to be embarrassed about or ashamed of because, you have no control over what's happened to you. It's an unfortunate incident that you had this illness, and if other people have an issue with something, that's their problem and they can deal with it. And you should never have to be ashamed of what you're going through. You're just trying to go about your day.
Yes, that's right. And on the way I look at it, I just try and remain positive as I can be, and I look at it like it could be a lot worse for myself, like there are people that are born with no vision at all, and they go their whole lives without having any vision. So I'm thankful for what I have accomplished in life. Before I started losing my vision, I was able to finish school and work. And
but you know what as well, like I feel as well, because I'm in a bit of a similar situation, because now even though I can't see something, when someone tells me about something, you can still visualize it because you know what it looks like. If you've never had eyesight, you would never know what the sky looks like or what a tree looks like, so you can't visualize that. But at least we got to be grateful that we could see for those number of years, and we can now just visualize it.
That's right, yes. And especially working in disability and aged care, I've seen a lot of people, and I know how much it affects their quality of life.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for what I do have.
I know we digressed from the line of conversation we were going on, so we can now shift back, so when you first come to atWork Australia, how did the team start supporting you to then go on to return to work?
Well, first I met Andrew from atWork Australia. I started setting up weekly appointments with him. I explained my situation and my living situation and stuff, and I just wanted to take it slowly to start with, just see what options were available, and also so that once I start applying for work, I'll be work ready.
And then now, did Andrew help you to get the job that you're currently in?
Well, funny enough, I had applied for a few places, and the one with now, they actually rang me, they approached me. And
okay.
Yeah, so it was just out of the blue, and just for a nursing agency. So they just called me out of the blue and said, can you do this shift in an hour? And I said, yes, I'll be there. And
now, did you share information about your vision impairment with them?
Yes, I did briefly. I explained to them, like I'm confident with my abilities. I wouldn't have applied for the job if I wasn't confident in my abilities.
Yeah.
But I was very nervous.
It's always, when you're going into a new environment with a vision impairment, you're always that little bit nervous because you're not sure where everything's going to be. How am I going to find what I need to find? It. Even simple things like how am I going to find the bathroom in a new place? That's sometimes the things that I worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the role that I'm doing, I go to different aged care facilities, and I have to try and get my head around the layout of the place and the residents and where one of the 30 toilets are in the places, you know what I mean? So it's very difficult.
At least you got 30 to try and find, so you should be able to might be able to find one.
Yes, that's right. I find myself often watching the fire escape maps because it tells me where I am in the building and stuff.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. And have you had to implement any workplace adjustments to support you within your workplace?
Honestly, I had a really good think about it to approach Andrew about what I would need for work to make it more accessible for me. And thank goodness there wasn't too many things that I need there. A lot of in the nurses station, the computer screens are really large, which is really great, and I can change the font. After doing a few shifts, I picked up on my main problem was when going outside into the darkness to take rubbish out, or even just when I finished my shift, I got support to get a good small rechargeable flashlight, and that really helped me heaps, just to have more confidence going outside and taking rubbish out by myself.
And how important is it for you to have for your colleagues and your managers? Are they all aware of the challenges that you face at work?
Yes, a lot of people are blown away with the fact of how much vision loss I have and how well I do my job. So a lot of people are really blown away with the fact of how well I do, considering. And it's a really good supportive environment. I've realised now. I don't know what I was so worried about returning to aged care in the first place, because it's a really good supportive environment. There are a lot of residents there that have vision impairments as well. So there's procedures in place, so there's no falls, risks or hazards and stuff. So there's a lot of really great open plan living setting, so there's wide hallways and good lighting.
Yep, and because you're supporting the elderly, I guess you're working with different people every day. Are you always having to remind people, let people know about your vision impairment?
Some people, mainly the staff, like some staff members, especially when I go to new facilities, I'll make a point of explaining it in the staff changeover, just as my shift starts and stuff, or I'll just politely mention it to the RN, and the RN's able to relay that information around.
And have you ever had any negative experiences when you shared information about your barrier?
I have, not so much at the workplace, but just in the community and stuff I have. Like, for example, I went to a waterfall with my partner a few weeks ago while our kids were at school, and I had my cane while we were hiking up this trail, and a gentleman approached me and said, "Shouldn't you be letting her use that stick to walk?" As he thought she was struggling with it. I'd explain to him, this is a seeing eye cane and I need this so I don't, I'm almost fully blind. I'd explain to him and his partner politely.
And what was his response to that?
He was very apologetic. It's just a matter of explaining some things to people who just have a quick look and make assumptions. I'm a very polite, understanding person.
But I think the problem is if people that see things and make assumptions and make comments, they could potentially say that to someone who isn't as confident with their disability as what you are or what I might be, and they could really offend somebody. So people really do need to consider and think about things before they go making spare of the moment comments like that, I think.
Yes, and there's a lot of things, especially with blindness or vision impairment. There's a lot of assumptions people make. Like I even did myself before I started losing my vision. I didn't understand the complexity of it, but
Yeah, because I always say I have a vision impairment, because if you say you're blind, people automatically think that you can't see anything.
Yeah,
and they start waving their hands around in front of you, asking you to count fingers and things like that.
Yes, that's right. Now I even understand more about it myself, like light perception and stuff like that. Like just how some people see things. It's a spectrum. Blindness is a spectrum.
Yeah, definitely. And so what does the future look like for you? You hoping to stay in your same line of employment? Are you enjoying what you're doing, or what are your career goals?
I want to stay working in aged care for as long as I can, just because I'm passionate about it. And I'd go do it for free if I could. So that's how I know I love what I do.
And we need more people like you, because I know, from what I understand, a lot of aged care facilities around the country are understaffed. So we do need a lot more people out there who are willing to support our elderly.
Yes, that's right. And the people that are there for all the right reasons as well.
you can definitely tell the staff who are there because they genuinely care over the ones that are there for a paycheck. So well
Yeah,
done to
that's
you, and
right.
it's really admirable to see you doing what you're doing. And I'm still quite amazed by the way you can actually still perform your role with your vision impairment. So well done.
Yeah, I do pretty good considering, and also I'll just mention, like, I'm a big advocate against elderly abuse as well.
Yeah, and what do you do? Do you do anything to help advocate for that, or is it just part of?
Oh, I'm just big on just raising awareness at work and stuff, and just at meetings and stuff, mentioning, like, if you see anything, just report it, and I'm all about mandatory reporting. Like, I've been witness to staff members assaulting residents in the past.
Oh
Like,
well.
in my first week of nursing, yeah, I was witness to it. And this guy was training me, so it was an eye opener for me, definitely.
How common are incidents like this?
It's really common, like, especially in aged care. It's a big thing, but the major thing in aged care is malnutrition. I think it's like 60 to 75% of residents in aged care in Australia are malnourished or at risk of malnutrition.
Oh wow, that's very sad.
Yeah.
And what would your advice be to young people or other people who might be considering to get into the aged care industry?
I'd recommend anyone get into aged care or just into the healthcare industry in general. Like, it's a great place to start your career, and there's always work, and it's a really great supportive work environment.
And just a couple more questions to finish up. I'm sure you probably motivate a lot of people that you speak to within the aged care home, within your community. What would you say to other people out there who might be trying to overcome their own challenges? It might not be a vision impairment. They might have another form of disability or some form of health condition, and they might be really struggling to figure out how they can get back to work. What would you say to these people?
If I could say anything, it'd be, I know there's, like, a lot of people these days face a lot of barriers, whether that be health conditions or just growing up in a disadvantaged community. There's a lot of supports out there, and there's a lot of work as well, like, for people that want to work. And there's a lot of training provided, and there's a lot of opportunities for people with disabilities or without to strive and succeed in their employment.
Yeah.
Like, if I can do it, anyone can.
Well, thank you very much, Ray, for coming and sharing a bit about your journey. I know personally I've really enjoyed hearing your story. As someone else who lives with a vision impairment, I can relate to a lot of the things that you've spoken about and the experiences that you've had. And it's just, I actually really enjoy speaking to other people who can relate to the feelings that I've felt as well. So thank you so much for coming in today and being so open and honest and sharing your journey.
That's all right, Shaun. Thanks. It was great talking to you as well.
Thanks, mate. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Candid Conversations with Shaun. I really hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ray. I know I took a lot away from it. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I always love having conversations with people who have a similar barrier to me and figure out how they go about everyday life, the tips and tricks that they use to get by. So Ray is a massive motivation for me and lots of other people as well, I'm sure. As always, to find out more information about anything we discussed today, please check out the links in the show notes.